I also spoke to Director of the CIA John Ratcliffe last night and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background as well, to include any known associates that are either overseas or here in the United States of America. That is what a broad-based international terrorism investigation looks like. We will provide continuous details to the American public while at the same time not jeopardizing the ongoing prosecution to ultimately hold this perpetrator accountable in our courts of law.
We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
The FBI has announced more details around the National Guard shooting in Washington, D.C. yesterday. A 29-year-old Afghan national is currently in custody, accused of shooting 2 West Virginia National Guards. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia paid tribute to the 2 guards, who remain in a critical condition.
First and foremost, our hearts go out to the victims and their families. These are dedicated service members who were performing their duties in service to our nation, and they are currently in critical condition. They have undergone surgery. We pray for their well-being as they continue to be cared for in the best possible way. We have been in constant contact with their families and have provided them with every resource needed.
The FBI has also confirmed the man, the shooter, worked with the CIA in his native Afghanistan. Mark Stone has more from the crime scene in D.C. this morning.
First, the gunman, the suspected gunman, who is in a hospital at the moment. He was injured. A lot more detail about him. 29 years old. Rahmanullah Lakanwal is his name. He entered the United States in 2021 under a Biden visa scheme. You'll remember that was the point at which the Americans pulled out, that chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. And as a consequence of that, many Afghans, thousands of Afghans and their families who had worked with the Americans and with other NATO troops in Afghanistan were given access to a visa scheme. Now, some of them, it is perfectly normal, would have been working with the CIA, who were operating in Afghanistan as well, and it appears he was one of those. So he would have been vetted and given a visa, put on a visa program to be brought here under the Biden administration. So there's a political element and a massive political row to what has happened in terms of the visa program there, and President Trump alluded to that in his statement last night. Let me show you the scene here. This is a bus stop. We're a block from the White House. One of the National Guard soldiers was shot right there. The other one was shot just at the entrance to the subway station. It was clear from the video that we've seen that we're not broadcasting because it's very graphic, that a lot of work was done, a lot of first aid was done on the 2 of them here in situ, and I imagine that first aid would have been absolutely critical to allowing them to survive. They are in a critical condition in hospital now, in 2 separate hospitals, we understand, here in the DC area, but they are alive, and that for everyone on this Thanksgiving Day is clearly a blessing. The investigation into the suspected gunman has led the authorities, including the FBI, to Washington State, where he was from, on the other side of the country. He drove, we're told, from Washington State to Washington D.C. That's a drive of 2 days. He had a handgun with him, a Smith & Wesson pistol, a revolver. So that is part of the investigation. That's now down in Quantico in Virginia being looked at. So a wide-ranging investigation and a massive political storm as well.
Someone else who sounds like was definitely in the wrong country in the end was the Afghan national who is now in custody for attacking 2 National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. today, just around the corner from the White House. It was an ambush, truly horrific. He came from around the corner, ambushed these National Guardsmen who are now fighting for their lives in hospital. This is Trump talking about how they are confident the suspect is a foreigner.
We must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
Now, it's interesting because this alleged attacker came to the US in 2021 under the Biden administration as someone who was brought over because apparently he worked with US forces in Afghanistan. But at the time, Trump raised concerns. How are these people being vetted? Because in Afghanistan, there aren't many resources to vet them. How do we really know who these people are? How many of them have links to terrorism? Let's take you back to 2021. Here was Donald Trump. I think he predicted this exact moment.
These aren't the interpreters that we taught. These were people that rushed into the planes. And they were so interested in trying to make it sound like, oh, they're doing a good job. These people, many of these people are going to be terrorists, okay? They're going to be terrorists. They were very powerful. They were very energetic in getting onto the aircraft.
They say they're vetting them very carefully with biometrics and documentation.
They're not doing that. And you can't because there is no documentation.
And here he's talking about, you'll remember those iconic scenes when the US aircraft were leaving Kabul airport and you just had thousands of Afghans rushing to get on the planes. And again, who are these people? Well, evidently, one of them has turned out to be an alleged terrorist at this stage, from what we understand. So, James, what was so interesting was then how the media reported all this. You would think it would be pretty clear-cut what's happened, but no.
Well, the National Guard were in Washington, D.C. at the behest of Donald Trump to crack down on crime, and MSNBC seemed to suggest that people in general, not just this Afghani immigrant, were just annoyed by the presence of the National Guard.
So much controversy happening in the United States right now with ICE, who are also wearing uniforms and wearing masks, and so there's you don't know people walking around with uniforms in an American city. There are some Americans that might object to that, and so apparently this shooting has happened.
It was just an American objecting to the presence of the National Guard, so he shot a few.